Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Sony CyberShot DSC RX100 Mark IV on the left and the RX10 Mark II on the right. Now these are two very different cameras, yet they share quite a bit in common. At face value, they look incredibly different because one is pocketable, the other one looks like a digital SLR, or at least something that would live in the interchangeable world. When we talk about pricing, that's another thing that's going to inherently draw people to compare these cameras because you're looking at $950 US versus $1,300 US. They both have the exact same 1-inch backlit sensor, 20 megapixels in resolution roughly. It's also the exact same stack design that allows for high-speed capture of up to 960 frames per second. You can drop that back, dial it down for higher video quality. But if you're into slow-mo capability, if that's a feature that appeals to you, you've got it in both of these. And really, again, the killer feature that both of these cameras bring that they didn't have in a previous generation was UHD video capture. So now we do have 4K capture on board. Here limited to 5 minutes because of overheating issues. Here limited to 2959 because it is a still, not video camera, but it will not overheat. So the overheating issues that exist in this smaller body do not exist here in the RX10 Mark II, and that probably has a lot to do with the fact that the body is large enough and the 1-inch sensor small enough that things just don't go awry like something like their brand new A7r Mark II, where after about an hour, hour and a half, you will need to let the camera cool down. And that's with bringing the LCD off body. So again, it's all about pricing and the fact that these two cameras have the same sensor and overall same capability, at least when it comes to raw imaging and video. Again, no limitations here with capture length really outside of that 30-minute mark that I mentioned before because no overheating issues. Also, much more flexible, I would say, manual control with this camera, but it is designed for a different audience. Pocket, gear bag. I mean, the whole idea here is that this is for the person who's looking for the best-in-class, zero-compromise, pocketable point-and-shoot camera that really is going to deliver everything they could possibly want, including an OLED viewfinder on board, which has become a standard now in Sony CyberShot cameras, which started with the RX100 Mark III and lives on here in the Mark IV. Fully rotating 180-degree LCD, so you can capture just about any moment and frame it without using the OLED screen, EVF, and then a really fast piece of Carl Zeiss glass, granted only 24 to 70 millimeters, but f1.8 to 2.8, so actually faster than the f2.8 constant aperture we get across the Zeiss 24 to 200 millimeter lens sitting atop the RX10 Mark II. But really what this comes down to is that are you looking for a pocketable camera that is the zero compromise? And when I say zero compromise, let's be realistic. Everything is a compromise in life, including digital imaging at the very least. Or are you looking for the compromise that's going to try to replace an interchangeable lens system and possibly your video camera? And I think that's been a very popular question is, will something like the RX10 Mark II replace something like the FDR AX100, a more expensive, much larger, and heavier video camera with a similar, more dated 1-inch sensor with direct readout that doesn't have the limitations of the or rather the time capture limitations and battery constraints of the RX10 Mark II, but it also lacks the low light capability and benefits of this newer sensor that exist or live here in the brand new second gen RX10. So really it isn't about picking between these two. If anything, I would say they're great to have both of if you can afford it. For those of you that are more interested in convenience than necessarily having the extra niceties afforded by a full frame experience and the Super 35 capability of something like the A7r Mark II, owning both of these does really deliver the best of both worlds. I mean, here you've got the camera you can take out casually, which often is the best camera because it's the one you're more apt to take with you anywhere you go, which means you don't miss your shot. And then here's the camera that replaces the system that traditionally would require a series of lenses. Granted, you're not getting prime performance. The fact that it is f2.8 across the range, though, is significant. Also, it does accommodate much of the manual features that you'd expect to get out of an interchangeable lens experience, whether it's the aperture ring here, the fact that you can turn this on or off with regard to the clickable mode, so clicking for still, no click for video, basically a wide variety of customizable buttons, which is critical. Again, something you don't really see that much of in a fixed lens point and shoot bridge style world. A readout up here at the top, basically not instantaneous powering on and off. I had it already on, excuse me there, with the camera, but very close. It's not as fast as the A7r Mark II. You have different modes of speed for the zoom. I mean, so this is really all about replacing that gear bag with one body, in the same way that many look at the RX100 line as actually replacing their bulky digital SLR that they never took out to shoot with, because even though it has, both of these have a 1-inch sensor, which is incomparable to even, let's say, an APS-C, let alone full frame in many ways, the end result is that the images you get out of these, because of the pairing of high-quality, fast-size glass with that backlit 1-inch sensor stack design, redesign, you just get so many keepers. And that's what I think a lot of people boil down their own personal photography to. Now, I'm not speaking to professionals out there. You lean on much more. We know that. But that's not who Sony is necessarily targeting. Granted, the RX10 Mark II is definitely targeting, I would say, just about everyone that could have an interest in photography from beginner to pro, even though I think as a video camera, it's still better suited as a B cam simply because of the limitations of it being a still camera. I mean, the S-Log feature does in many ways make it better than the AX100 I'm filming on now, and the fact that it does have better low light performance. The high-speed video capture, 960 frames, I do consider that a gimmick, but certainly a nice thing to have on both of these. Both have Wi-Fi and NFC, but the video capture limitations, here 5 minutes, well, that's offset by the zero overheating and nearly 30-minute capture clip length that you're going to get out of the RX10 Mark II. So together, I think these create a photographic travel dream similar to what I've already shot with the RX100 Mark IV and the HX90V. Of course, the HX90V, much less expensive, 30 times lens, smaller sensor, no UHD video, none of the manual capability, and none of the bulk of this. So again, that also relates to what you really want to carry. How interested are you in your hobby? How vested are you as a professional? Because I do think that both of these cameras appeal to pros as well. I mean, after all, you're looking at cameras that, if you're a pro, both of these offer you the best experience and output that you could possibly get in their form factor. And it's not just about proof of concept anymore. Sony is past that. Many will say, well, it still is because there's overheating, but with the RX10 Mark II, there is no overheating. The lens is not perfect. Stabilization is not perfect. The same applies to the RX100. I think it's a little bit less noticeable with the RX100 simply because it does not have the focal range that the RX10 Mark II sports. But when it comes to actual, going outside, living outside of the auto world, clearly the RX10 Mark II is for you. The RX100 is more of the casual niche product that's for the consumer that must have the absolute best in their pocket, that they know when they're not taking out their RX10 Mark II or their A7r Mark II or their A7R or RX1, whatever their full-frame camera is, or Nikon, Canon preference, they will still have something better than anything else available in their pocket, and the ability to capture phenomenal UHD video, even if limited to 5 minutes. I don't really see that as being a game breaker like many other consumers or reviewers, because personally it's fitting in my pocket, and to get that sort of quality even for 5 minutes, I don't plan on shooting anything long-term with this camera anyway. So to me, the 5-minute capture cap is not a game breaker, and clearly the RX10 Mark II makes that moot altogether, because there it's really, again, just about how many batteries and SD cards do you have to keep up with how much this can continuously record, as long as you respect those 30-minute capture lengths. So both are fantastic cameras. Again, the comparison really comes down to, do you want a pocket camera or do you want a camera that's going to replace a system? And then even though it's not light, It is weatherproofed, or weather sealed rather, not proofed, but it does really offer you everything that you would want to get out of a complete system in a single body. And at $1,300, even though the original RX10 dropped off as soon as the Panasonic FZ1000 dropped for less money, I don't see this being anywhere near as expensive as the RX100. I mean, clearly you're paying in the Mark IV for its form factor and capability. Here, you're still paying the original entry point for the RX10, but getting considerably more in terms of features, in my opinion, unless you absolutely completely disregard the video capability. And this is also capable of S-Log video capability as well. So to have that on both of these models, a huge advantage. So do you want the pocket camera with as little compromise as possible with both regard to still and video quality, or do you want the bridge style camera that is going to replace that heavy equipment from whatever manufacturer, including Sony? I mean, if I were to bring the A7r Mark II in, I mean, just look at that. And here we've got the wide angle lens on it. If I were to throw the zoom lens on, we're talking about bringing out this 70-200, and that's just in a whole nother realm. I mean, so to think about, yes, I'm not going to achieve full frame results going with something like the RX10 Mark II, but I am going to get very good ones nonetheless, and no overheating, again, if video is your primary. I don't find myself, since I'm not, at least by profession, a videographer, in a position where I always have to have or worry that my camera is going to overheat, and that's where the A7R Mark II is fine for me, especially when you take into account that it's the least expensive full-frame camera ever capable of Super 35 video performance. That to me is completely acceptable that it ends up overheating. It's not something I like or appreciate. In fact, I take a bigger issue with the battery life. But here, that's not really the case with either of these cameras. Battery life is solid on both. Of course, better on the RX10 Mark II. You're looking at a little over 300 shots here, a little less than 300, roughly 300 here. But on the video side, the RX10 Mark II is simply beast. I have no other way of putting it. And then all of the flexibility of what you'd expect from a digital SLR or other high-end camera that does break that $1,000 barrier. Granted, it still does have a weakness of a 1-inch sensor, but that backlit design stack now does make a huge improvement that I would argue is worth it if you don't already own an RX10 and you do actually appreciate having UHD without any overheating issues with a phenomenal lens built in, which is what most videographers, I think, are in the market for, and why this is so compelling. After all, it is less expensive than just about any other high-quality, prosumer-grade 4K video capture machine. The AX100, the AX33, I would say the video quality does look better that comes out of here. Not quite as smooth on the zoom, a little bit more wobble on the zoom assembly, but remember, this is a still camera first. So again, all about the pocket, all about the system replacement. Together, I won't say nirvana, but you do achieve or accomplish something that if I didn't have as deep an interest in the hobby as I do, I probably would be perfectly happy with just having these two cameras to travel with and forget all about the interchangeable lens world. That's exactly how good the A7, a little bit of a Freudian slip there because of how much I'm enjoying the A7R Mark II, but how great the RX10 Mark II is, and of course the little brother, the RX100 Mark IV, truly are at the end of the day in terms of just delivering incredible still and video in bodies that are unimaginable and with range and flexibility that, again, would really require an entire system. Even though neither has prime glass, they both have very fast lenses paired with sensors that just no one else is putting out right now. So until Panasonic updates the FZ1000 and until we see a true competitor to the RX100 Mark IV, which I haven't seen a true competitor to really any of the RX100 cameras, and I know you Canon and Nikon fans will chime in, but when it comes to video and stabilization and that balance of getting great stills, I still haven't seen anyone really step up. Forget now that we are on our second generation of even improved OLED EVFs popping out on board, which is something that we traditionally couldn't get from Sony up until last year. So both are great cameras. I think they're well worth the money. You cannot go wrong with either. If you're disappointed by the 5 minutes 4K video capture here, well, this isn't the right camera for you. And I don't even know what to tell you you'd be disappointed by on the RX10 Mark II, other than the fact that the lens isn't as long or the stabilization isn't as solid as the FZ1000. But again, those do come at a cost of image quality. It's an older sensor. And overall, I have to just say that everything the RX10 Mark II approaches to do, it does well. S-Log in both, I've mentioned that several times because you will not find that on another camera at this price point or grade of build, and that is a huge thing in both cameras' favors. So both are fantastic, money well spent either way, and again, if you can have them both, you really do end up with the best of both worlds in the point-and-shoot realm. However, of course, if you want interchangeable lens cameras, APS-C, micro four thirds, or full frame, these aren't really what you're after, but you might still want to have this in your pocket anyway. Hope you all enjoyed this comparison. It wasn't as quick as I'd initially planned, but both cameras really deserve a lot of love because they are pushing the envelope for the industry as usual, which is what I've depended on Sony now for many years, and which is why I have covered them as closely as I have. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.